What's going on, guys? Jacob Orth back here with another video of Jacob's Life in Vegas. Talk to you guys about something that is popular in the news now. I wasn't planning on doing this video a few weeks ago, but once the news came out, people start to ask me about it, what my perspective is as somebody who used to live in the Bay Area, who moved here from the Bay Area to Las Vegas, who played college football in the Bay Area, and is more familiar with Northern California, and now lives in Las Vegas. They want to know what my perspective is on the Oakland Raiders moving here to Las Vegas. And I gotta say, my first thought is I was actually surprised that it happened. I was surprised that, it became concrete. I was surprised that it was end up going through, because when I first heard about it months ago, I thought it might happen. But I was like, yeah, it seems kind of a long shot. Vegas, really, when I first got it, Vegas had no professional teams of any kind. Right now there's a hockey team and the NFL team coming. A lot of the locals even, just kind of seem to think there would never be professional teams here. I'd heard before that people thought it was because of all the sports betting here, all the gambling, that it'd be kind of like a conflict of interest to have professional teams here. Well, this is, the place where all the odds are made on sports games and things like that. So, just the area being so transient, didn't seem like it was going to be a great place to have an NFL team to have the market to support it. And, it just seemed like there were quite a few things against having a professional team here. And it's just interesting the way it worked out, because, I particularly didn't think it was going to happen after they lost their backing for the stadium. And then they wound up getting it again. I was like, okay, well, that, helps a little bit. I still don't think it was going to happen, though, because I don't know if I'd read it an article or I heard on ESPN or something like that, how the NFL basically wanted the Raiders to stay in Oakland because of all the money that's in the Bay Area. And there's definitely money here in the Vegas area. There's about 2 million people who live here, and there's some serious money here, no doubt. But in the Bay Area, it's a bit of a different animal, because I think the immediate Bay Area is about 6 million people, like in the immediate Bay Area. Then you have the outer parts, and even have, like, as you go out into like the Central Valley, that kind of area, there's a big Raider fan base there too as well, not just in the Bay Area. There's some really, really wealthy neighborhoods in the Bay Area. Some, even if you're like out in the East Bay, which is generally not considered as nice as like the Peninsula, the San Francisco area, you could be out in Alameda, you could be in Concord, out in Black Hawk, or something like that. Those are generally considered nice areas. There's some plenty wealthy spots over there. You go across the bay, up north into Marin County. That's a nice county. That's a wealthy county. Of course, certain parts of San Francisco. You go down the peninsula, you hit spots like Hillsborough, Atherton, Portola Valley. All of those are known for being really wealthy areas. And then even you get into San Jose and other parts of the Bay Area, there are just wealthy neighborhoods all over that place, even aside from just the ones I mentioned. So there's some serious money there. Obviously the Raiders have been there a long time. They left before once to LA, then came back, but they got a strong fan base there in the Bay Area, a lot in the Central Valley as well, where I grew up. So, I got to experience a lot of, I was around a lot of Raider influence as a kid, right? The Raiders and the Niners are the two popular teams up there because they're right by each other. So, and both of those teams have a strong influence here, the Raiders and the Niners. And then, just some other teams that have influence here that is pretty strong. Teams have been around for a long time. There are teams that have just a large fan base in general, like, the Steelers or the Packers, the Cowboys, even the Giants. Those teams that just have a big fan base all over the country have a good fan base here as well. The Raiders, though, are a bit of an exception to the fan base here, because the Raiders, obviously, they were in LA for a while. So the Raiders were in Los Angeles, which is why, they have a big fan base down there. And this is why whenever they go play the Chargers in San Diego, or at least when the Chargers were in San Diego, they would have a good showing over at San Diego, because, it's close to LA, and the Raiders still have a big fan base down from when they were in LA. Well, LA County is like the #1 county that feeds in here to Las Vegas, to Clark County. So when the Raiders were in Los Angeles, they have a big fan base down there, and their people have moved from Los Angeles to Las Vegas, and some of them are definitely Raider fans. So the Raiders do have a good amount of support here in this area. So I guess in that regard, it did make them an appealing team to have here. And it's just interesting, because I didn't quite think it was going to happen, but it looks like here, the next few years, we're going to have the Las Vegas Raiders. The talk now is about, where the stadium's going to be, where they're going to put this stadium for it. And I think the stadium's going to be great to have here, because obviously, they'll be able to play the games there, but, they can try to host a Super Bowl here, try to host other events with this stadium. And it looks like the prime position they're going to want to put is over on Russell Road, south end of the Strip. I mean, south and like that towards the end, like if you're coming out of like Mandalay Bay, Russell Road, and then like Polaris is like the cross street. So, which is, it's a big empty lot. Maybe I'll go over there one day and do another video on it. It's probably the only place I can think of that they could really fit a stadium over near the Strip, and I imagine the city's going to want it to be near the Strip because obviously it makes it more convenient for people who are coming to see the games. They can stay at the hotels, spend money in the casino, spend money on the Strip, and, you know, keep everything close to the Strip to keep the money close. You know, the only thing that's interesting is that area, though, they're gonna have to do some serious construction because, you know, Russell is a few lanes. Russell's probably the biggest road over there. It's about 3 or 4 lanes in each direction, depending on what part of Russell you're on. If you're on the overpass or just driving, you know, farther away from the Strip. But, you know, Polaris is like a 1-lane road in each direction. The other road that Polaris crosses over, the other side of the empty lot is Hacienda. I think that's, what, 2 lanes each direction or something. I mean, you know, they're going to have to expand those roads over there because there's not a whole lot of driving space over there right now as it is. And there's also businesses right along Polaris where that empty lot is. So it's going to be interesting to see what happens with that area if that is in fact where they go ahead and put the stadium. You know, maybe they'll come up with some other place to put it. But it's just, you know, kind of interesting because if they go any farther south or anything like that, they'll be over by the airport. Which I'd heard, you know, there was talks of building some other complex over kind of close to the airport, but they didn't want to do it because it'd be interfering with the flights going overhead. So, you know, I don't know how many options they're going to have for a place to put a stadium, but it seems like Russell Road, that area is going to wind up being the ideal place. And, you know, it's going to be interesting. I think it's going to help this local economy in terms of jobs to build a stadium, jobs to have people work at it, and then money, of course, for games. People come to see games. They have other events there. It's going to bring more money. So it's going to be interesting to see what happens and pans out, you know. And as far as, you know, the players, the staff all transitioning here, it's going to be quite a transition for them. And, you know, who knows, maybe a field will reach out and contact me, or if they're looking to buy a home, they'll hit me up for help, because I know what it's like to come from the Bay Area to Las Vegas, and they are 2 different cultures without a doubt. They are very, very different. You know, I'm sure they'll love a lot of the same things that I love when you come here. You know, no state income taxes, cost of living for your house is like 40, 50, 60% cheaper. Your gas is way cheaper, right? Your dollar goes so much further in general. I mean, you know, that's something that probably just about everybody will love. And then, you know, just the transition here culturally can be a little bit different coming from California, especially from the Bay Area. So, you know, ultimately, guys, I'm surprised. I am surprised the deal went through. I'm surprised it happened, but hey, we're gonna have the Las Vegas Raiders here in the next few years, and it's just gonna be, I think, fun to see the progression of this, see the stadium being built, and just see, you know, the effect it has here locally on this economy. So stay tuned, guys. It's gonna be, I think, an interesting couple years to see the Raiders come here to Vegas. That's it for this video, guys. I'm Jacob. This is My Life in Vegas.